What's up, guys? T-Rex with House Rules Gaming here. So on Tuesday, July 2nd, EA finally released the most anticipated deep dive covering Dynasty mode. And needless to say, it was probably the most comprehensive deep dive that we've received thus far. So over the last few days, I've taken the time to comb through that deep dive video and the countless amounts of articles that I could find, going over the tiniest of details that they released, just to put together this comprehensive list of what my final thoughts are based on the information that we've gotten. Now, right off the bat, I will say that this deep dive has me beyond excited to play this game, as there were a lot of features and little nuanced things that were announced that I never would have even thought to put in a wish list of mine. So EA really hit it out the park with this one. Now, I do have some very tiny criticisms, but nothing that I can't overlook, especially seeing as this is the first time we've gotten this game back in over 11 years. Now, real quick, before we get started, I do want to let you guys know about my giveaway. Once we hit 500 subscribers, I will be giving away a copy of this game. And if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, I'll be giving away 2 copies. So please check down below to make sure that you are subscribed so you don't have to miss out. Now, this video is shaping up to be a long one, so without further delay, let's get into it. Now, I'll be talking about these things in about 4 different sections, one of which being recruiting, custom conferences, coaching carousel, and what I'm going to refer to as dynasty management. But let's start off with recruiting. So I, for one, after looking over that deep dive video multiple times, I hadn't seen this, but I do want to shout out DM Gaming, because he actually posted a video pointing out that we do have JUCO prospects in the game. So at about 1 minute 30 seconds in the deep dive video, you can see just above the player that they have selected, G Vaughn, who's a cornerback. He's a JUCO sophomore, and that JUCOs will be in the standard recruiting pool for high school players, as they don't have players in junior college don't have access to the transfer portal, which was news to me. But after a conversation that I had with Omar Manning, who used to play wide receiver for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, that the JUCO prospects are treated just like high school players when it comes to recruiting. So that was cool to find that little Easter egg. And like I said, again, shout out to DM Gaming for that one. And speaking of Omar, he actually pointed out to me how deep the variation of naming of player names can be in this game, as I jokingly made the remark that I wouldn't be impressed until I saw Polynesian names in the recruiting pool, and he actually found one and pointed it out to me, which I thought was kind of crazy. But I'm really excited to see the fact that they have a lot of these different ethnic names in there, and it isn't just the Polynesian or Pacific Islander names, but they had pointed out which looked like some were like Israeli names, some other names with Middle Eastern ethnic backgrounds as well too, which I thought was really cool. So a nice added piece of realism that I saw they implemented was that smaller schools have more limited resources when it comes to recruiting, whether that be smaller recruiting staffs or just the ability to go out and talk to these different kids. And with that, they actually have reduced the amount of recruiting hours that the smaller schools can use, with the example that they gave us, like a 5-star program where they would have 1,000 recruiting hours. A 1-star program would only have 300, which is a huge variance, and is going to make it much more difficult for you to build up those smaller programs in this game, which I love, because in the older games it always felt like you could get that small program to be relevant a lot faster, which this takes that and nullifies the amount of impact that you can have on the recruiting trail early on. So you're gonna have to really grind as those smaller schools in order to build them up. So a player's development trait can't be scouted, but if you have as a coach, if you have the mind reader ability, there's a possibility that you can learn what their dev trait is on their official visit. But other than that, you won't see what their dev trait is until they've actually signed to your roster, in which I like that. However, I do feel like that should have been taken a little bit further, and there should be some sort of fog of war element to that, meaning that I feel like you should have to play a guy so many snaps before their dev trait is actually available for you to view. Like, I think you could have like a range of what it could be from this to this, but I think to see what the actual dev trait is, like he would have to play, let's just call it like 50 snaps in order for you to unlock what his real dev trait is. Now we have decommits in the game, but that is 100% tied to each player's deal breaker. I had just wished they had taken that a step further and allowed us to flip verbal commits, because as we see in real life, that happens all the time. A guy verbally commits somewhere, then for whatever reason, usually not disclosed, they reopen their commitment and then they end up signing somewhere else. For example, Dylan Raiola, at one point he had committed to Ohio State, then he had committed to Georgia, then he reopened his commitment altogether and ended up signing with Nebraska. Like, a guy isn't fully committed to your school until he signs his national letter of intent. And something I really appreciate about the pitch system is that they are grouped together, meaning that like your one pitch, covers 3 different areas. That whole system is just perfect to me. Like, I could have never thought of that. And that I really hope that they don't go away from that in the future. It just makes total perfect sense. And with the return of that in-depth pitch system and deal breakers, I would have really liked to see promises make its way back into the game, because making sure you maintain your deal breakers with certain players is cool, but the added pressure of making sure that you fulfill promises that you made to kids is just a nice extra touch. I would like to be able to promise a kid a specific number if they come to my school, and that would give me, bonus recruiting favor with that player, as well as promising them to play a game in their home state. And you could also have that play into, them potentially transferring if you don't keep up that promise. So if I sign that guy and I promise him that, he could wear a certain number, and I don't fulfill that promise to him after first year, he could potentially be on the fence as far as a transfer player. Just something like that. Just a little bit added depth and challenge into the mode. And I just really appreciate that they've humanized and individualized each recruit with the perfect pitch mechanic, and that the fact that you can even try to sway their opinions and desires just like a real life coach would. That's just a really nice little piece of added depth to that. Now, regional pipelines. Again, something I would have never thought about, but it makes total perfect sense. But recruiting South Florida is completely different than recruiting North and Central Florida. The type of player and caliber of players, are completely different. Like, there's a complete difference between a receiver from South Florida than a wide receiver from East Texas. And same thing like quarterback play. A quarterback from Southern California is going to play completely different than a quarterback from Atlanta, the Atlanta metro area. But when it comes to these pipelines, though, I don't like the fact that you can't lose a pipeline. Like, you should have to maintain those relationships like coaches have to in real life. Like, some schools in Ohio are spurning Ohio State for not offering some of their guys. Although, yes, some schools will always be able to maintain their presence in a given area, but it should at least be able to drop tiers if you don't maintain that relationship. And I do appreciate the fact that we have the gym and bus system back. And I like how they explained it too, where a 5-star bust is still very likely a high 4-star. But truth be told, doesn't matter to me much. We don't scout over here. I'm team no scout. I hate wasting recruiting hours and points on scouting. I'd rather use those points to build a relationship up with that player anyway. Now, a lot of the things that they mentioned in the recruiting section of the blog and in the video is they were visually present in NCAA 14, but had no context to it and seemed not to matter in the grand scheme of things, because the most important thing was just throw all your recruiting points at a given guy until he locks you out or he commits to you. I'm just glad that they made this stuff matter again. Now let's talk about custom conferences. Now, this is probably one of the least changed features that we got brought back from 2014, but the changes that we did get were some nice quality of life enhancements. The max number of teams that we can add to a single conference is 20. which is up from 16 in the last version of this game, in which I'm cool with the 20 team limit. I've been trying in my head to think about what anything larger than that would be, and I can't even consider a custom conference that big. I'm not one on the huge mega conference thing that a lot of other guys are into, but like I said, to me 20 is fine. Another major change is now that we can turn off divisions and set a conference game rule limit. But something that they had mentioned was the fact that they have both the SECs and the Big Ten's protected opponents rules set up in place, but was not shown in the custom conference screen. So I am curious as to if we got that or not. At the very least, I would like to see the protected rivalries return, but I also want to know what the other options are that they have for determining who goes to the conference championship game or not, as that was like a selection tab, but it didn't show any of the other options other than conference record. So I understand the reasoning for not allowing us to create a whole new conference or delete an existing conference, as it messes with the scheduling algorithm. But that to me is another reason why we should have had the ability to either rename a conference, or let me rephrase that. That's why we need the ability to rename conferences and add new logos in place of the old ones. Because for example, right now we have quote unquote the Pac-12, which is only a 2-team conference at this moment. We should be able to rename that to something completely different, upload a completely new conference logo. But I have a video series that I'm working on called The Importance of Customization, in which custom conferences is one of those main topics in there. So if you want to see more on that, please make sure you are subscribed so you don't have to miss out when I finally upload that one. But somewhere in the article, they mentioned that the Pac-12 champion could be seated no higher than 5th in the playoff bracket. But right now, you could barely consider them a conference. And what if I build back up the Pac-12 or set it to at least how it used to be? Does that change how the playoff seeding works then? I have a lot of questions when it comes to that. But the whole implementation of the 12-team playoff is intriguing to me, because with custom conferences, we're allowed to move teams in and out of what they would consider the Power 4 conferences. Do we have the ability to change playoff priority? I don't think we do, but I think we should. As in, if I wanted to build up the American and make it a 5th power conference, I should be able to make it a priority when it comes to playoff seeding. But custom conferences has left me with more questions than I have answers, some of which I think will get answered once we actually get the game in hand, and others I believe should be addressed in future versions of the game. Next up, let's talk coaching carousel. I love these new coaching skill trees with branching archetypes. It feels like we're going to be playing an RPG as a football coach, and I'm here for all of it. And we can finally hire and fire our own coordinators as a head coach. Now, me personally, as a head coach, I will be primarily a recruiting archetype and hire my coordinators as motivators and tacticians. But let me know down in the comments how you plan on building out your coach and what type of coaching talent that you'll be bringing along with you when you start your dynasties. Now, this is a quality of life feature that I will appreciate in game, but obviously isn't really a part of how getting a new job as a coach at a different school works in real life. But the fact that we can finally stack multiple offers from different schools before actually taking one, because something I hated in NCAA 14 was the fact that I would take a job for a different school. Like it would be like one of the earlier offers that I would receive, but later on down the line find out that there was another one that I actually probably would have preferred more. So I'm glad that we can see like all of our offers up front and then choose from them at that point. But seeing as that the coaching carousel now is a multi-week process, I wonder if you accept a job after like a week 1 or 2, if another one, let's just say you accept a coordinator job after like week 1 or 2, if another job comes open as maybe like a head coaching job, can you take that one instead? Kind of like how Bill O'Brien did, where he took the Ohio State offensive coordinator job, but then the Boston College head coach job came open and he left and took that job instead. I wonder if you could also do that in game. Now, another quality of life improvement that we have now is I just loved how that they explain why each school offers certain coaches. That was never explained before, and now you know why you may not get the offer that you're holding out for. As you know, each school has a type of coach that they look for in order to fill that position. Like a specific school may be looking for a recruiting specialist coach that runs a specific offense and defense, but you may be on the complete opposite spectrum of that. So they may not offer you that job even though you want it, because you don't fit the mold of the coach that they're trying to bring in. I just really like that it explains that to you. So when hiring new coordinators during the carousel, it gives you an option to look at what their talent tree is, and when that option was clicked on, it looks like it shows off what kind of archetype they are and what skills that they've been putting together as a coordinator. But they mentioned previously that some coaches will have players that will transfer with them to their new job when they decide to take one. But they didn't show that off anywhere in the deep dive video or talk about it at all in the blogs. So we really have no new information on how that works, and I'm really curious about seeing that, because I want to know if we need to make sure that we leave roster spots open for those guys to transfer in with that new coach. There's something else they showed off, and I don't know if this was at the end of the carousel or towards the beginning, which shows all of the different staff moves throughout the league. And something that kind of caught my eye was the one of the reasons for leaving. There were a few coaches towards the top right there that had the tag on them, went to the NFL. Now, I know as of right now, we have no way of importing draft classes into Madden. But I wonder in the future if these coach moves that are marked went to NFL will also pop up in Madden when you import a draft class as new offensive and defensive coordinators and head coaches in the game. That would be a really cool way to tie that in. Like I know obviously it probably has no bearing on this year's version of the game, but I like that call out that they have that as one of the reasons for leaving, as well as the traditional retired, got fired, or went to took a job at a different school. Again, just a really cool call out to see that your coaches are cycled through as showing going to the next level. And they also made mention that your coordinators will never leave you unless you fire them or they get hired by another school. Something I would like to see them implement in the future would be a way in order to persuade your coordinators to stay. Now, I think that would be something along the lines of managing the coordinator contracts ourselves, as they said that each coordinator will be given a 2-year contract. Maybe we get a way to either give them a longer term contract for more money or things like that. So just especially if I have a coordinator that I really like that complements my skill set the way that I want them to, I would like a way to be able to try to retain them as much as possible. And lastly, we have dynasty management. So first off, I love the fact that we have the new red shirt rule where you can play a guy up to 4 games and not burn his actual red shirt. And the example that they used was really cool too. So the fact that if I play a guy for 3 games and we're not necessarily a playoff team, but we get invited to a bowl game, and I already have seniors that are going to be leaving, I can play him in 3 games during the season, and then come that bowl game, and I can actually play him during that bowl game, get him some experience, and it still doesn't count as burning a red shirt for that player. A really nice touch of added realism, because schools do that all the time. But what they did not mention, and I don't think is in the game, but I really would have liked to have seen it, would be the medical red shirt, which guys suffer season-ending or season-altering injuries towards the beginning of the year a lot. I would like to be able to get that extra year of eligibility off of him with that medical red shirt. And they also talked about different needs at each position depending on your scheme. But my biggest question about this is the game going to force you to have a fullback? And most modern offenses don't require you to have a fullback, but will instead either use a second running back or a tight end in that position. I used to hate how the game would always force me to carry at least one fullback on the roster at all times. So I would end up cutting a guy that I actually needed. But it had gotten to the point that towards the end of my time playing college football revamped, I would actually have a tight end that I would change his position to fullback, and I would actually cut whatever the default fullback the game would just throw on my roster at the end of the year, so that way I could at least use the guy. But yeah, I really want to see if they kept true to that and don't actually force us to use a fullback if the offense doesn't call for it. Now, I love the new playoff format with the 12 team and how like the first round, the home teams or like the higher seeds host the first round games, and the semifinals and finals were hosted at major bowl sites. But I wish that were customizable though. But I'm not going to go into detail on it here, as that is going to be another segment in my importance of customization video series. But all in all, we just need more customization in the game. Now that's going to do it for me in this one, guys. I would really like to know what your guys' thoughts are on what we actually saw and some things that you wish you had gotten more information on. So please leave those down in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this type of content and want to see more of it in the future, please go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you don't have to miss out. Stay blessed, y'all. I'm out.